Hi everyone, my name is Tejas Chopra, and today I am very excited to be a part of Code Week. I am going to talk about DevOps at Netflix. I am the talk will cover some of the cultural aspects of DevOps and how we imagine DevOps in Netflix. Um, Hopefully, there are some principles of this that you can carry back to your organizations, and you can learn more about how DevOps really is a reflection of the culture at Netflix. Just give me a second. I'll try to share my screen and just, I hope you can see my screen now. So I will present this. Great. So the agenda for the talk is as follows. I'll talk about myself, what I do at Netflix. I'll talk about Netflix DevOps, the culture, and then there'll be some time that I'll keep aside for some questions and answers. I am a senior software engineer at Netflix. I work on architecting infrastructure solutions for Netflix studios and Netflix streaming platforms. This includes a lot of backend infrastructure for storage, for compute, especially around the movie making process. I am a 40 under 40 recognized tech leader. I have experience working at companies like Box, Samsung, Apple, and Cadence, where I was working on the backend side. I'm also a TEDx speaker. I have spoken on concepts in blockchain, cloud, and distributed systems. I also teach students about software development practices as an adjunct professor at University of Advancing Technology in Arizona. When we think about Netflix, we think about the wonderful shows that you watch on Netflix. Really, Netflix as a company has come about to try to win moments of truth. Every evening, when you sit in front of your computer or your screen or your laptop, you have a decision to make around what you want to watch or how you want to spend your time. And Netflix wants to design itself in a way that it wins those moments of truth. In order to do that, it is not just the content that we make, but also the infrastructure that we support that can help stream the content as well as create the content. And to that end, our architecture it has compute and storage completely in Amazon on AWS. We were initially running on Akamai, but then we realized that we would be best served by having our own content distribution network. So when you are streaming a Netflix movie, it doesn't really read from the cloud. It actually has edge devices that is closest to you that will stream the movie to you. And this is the CDN that Netflix has developed internally and open sourced. It's called Open Connect, Netflix Open Connect. You can read more about it. And the code is open sourced as well. We still use Akamai for some UI and small assets. Now, if we think about the architecture and the scale at which Netflix works, we support more than 220 million members. We are present in more than 190 countries. We have thousands of microservices, thousands of daily production changes, tens of thousands of virtual machine instances, hundreds of thousands of customer interactions per second, billions of time series metrics, tens of billions of hours that we stream every quarter. And we do this with tens of operations engineers, and we don't have any NOC or network operations center. If I have to show you how these microservices communicate with each other and how the Netflix architecture looks like, this image is a good way to show that. As you can tell, it's very, very complicated just because we have around 6,000 microservices at this point. So it really helps to answer the question then, how do we really do DevOps at Netflix? We don't. We don't do DevOps in the traditional sense. We do not have systems that say no to our engineers. There are no push windows. Everyone has full access to production. We don't take time to build systems or have procedures or policies that prevent people from pushing their code. What we do instead have is freedom and responsibility. One of our goals at Netflix is to hire the smart people and get out of their way. If I hire someone who is good at what they do and is intelligent, then they need to have the freedom to solve the problems in a way that they see best. We also look for people that take up responsibility and do not wait to be given to them. We do not optimize for uptime at all costs. There are companies and organizations for which uptime at all costs is very critical. They are companies typically that work with healthcare data or finance data. Repercussions of downtime are very different. But Netflix optimizes for the user experience rather than uptime at all costs. If you're watching Netflix and if you switch from one device to the other, even if there is a glitch or your movie does not continue from the same point, you're okay. It's not business critical. We instead optimize for our engineers to constantly solve creative problems and for our customers to still get a good usable experience. We price the velocity of innovation. I want the smart engineers that we hire to find newer ways of delighting our customers. And Netflix as an organization understands that we will have to trade some of the uptime for this. It is not that uptime is not important. It is just not our first priority. It is keeping our engineers do fun and interesting and exciting things for our millions of customers. We do not believe in having processes and procedures. It is very difficult to have a fast moving organization filled with people that solve interesting business problems to have someone build guardrails that are appropriate for it. That is a very bureaucratic way of thinking. One of the functions of bureaucracies is to take that bureaucratic machine and plug in virtually any cog and get the output that the bureaucracy desires. That is not what we are doing. We do not prescribe any particular way of deploying your service or writing your service or any particular framework of using it. What we instead try to build is trust. We work hard to find people that are not from that bureaucratic machine mold where you need to be told what the guardrails are. We inherently are a creative organization. So we want people to be creative. We want them to question how things are when it comes to deployment, when it comes to DevOps, when it comes to how you write your code or what languages you choose. We want people to challenge our thinking and suggest newer ways of doing things. So we trust the people that we hire. That's why we do not have any issues giving people complete access to production data. This means that anyone can actually, bring down a Netflix show. And many people have asked us whether that has happened before, and it has never happened. So we continuously allow people to have full access to it. We do not force people to use a particular language or require any standards. Currently at Netflix, we use a bunch of JVM languages. Microservices are written using Spring Boot and Kotlin, Python. I work on a file system that was written in C++, and some parts of it were written in Go. There's lots of Rust and Scala and Node as well. When I was working on writing a file system, I picked up C++ simply because Java did not give me the performance requirements. And Java is slower when you are working on reads and writes at that layer. So C++ being closer to the hardware was a much better language. And so I went ahead and implemented the file system using that. There was no pushback. So there is, like I said, there is no prescription when it comes to choosing what language you want to implement your code in. We try to focus a lot on enablement. Some years ago, the team that works on the UI of Netflix wrote the backend, and they wrote the backend in Java and the front end in JavaScript. And they realized that as a team that they would be better served if they used Node. So they switched during a weekend. They did not need any approvals. In our team, we analyzed the performance of C++, Java for a file system in the user space, like I said, and C++ gave us a better performance. So we took a conscious decision of sticking with it. We have a team that writes tools to enable other software engineers to spend time on things that we have hired them to do. That is how we enable our software engineers to develop delightful software. We do not work with silos, walls, and fences. We do not have traditional operational fences where the operational engineering group sits behind a fence over which the code is thrown in the hopes that one day it will show up in production. We typically, every engineer that is hired at Netflix is a DevOps engineer. So we are expected to own all pieces of the software development lifecycle, right from the point of prototyping and POC to the point of actual deployment in the customer's environment or on cloud. We believe in making ownership very easy. So you build it, you run it with a focus on enablement. If I write code, it is my responsibility to deploy it to production, manage the appropriate cluster groups, the availability zones, select the right machine to run on it. And to that end, Netflix has open sourced a tool called Spinnaker. It's a platform that makes it easy for developers to put their services to cloud or to on-premise environments. So this is to say that for every engineer, the focus is not just writing a feature or writing a service. It's an entire end-to-end life cycle of a service, as well as having the right metrics and observability in place to help debug services if things go wrong. So in that sense, you have complete freedom to choose the way, the language, the framework you desire, and you have the responsibility when something goes wrong. We do not believe in guesses or gut instinct or tradition. We try to focus a lot on data. More than anything, Netflix is an enormous data company. We have 2.5 billion time series metrics, and that is just operational data. A vast majority of our decisions are based on data. Netflix began streaming in 2007 from our data centers. And in 2008, there was a fire in a data center. So we had a decision to make. We could have done data centers and found people to do it. But if our job is to win those moments of truth, being great at running data centers will not help us. So we worked with partners to do that undifferentiated heavy lifting. We would much rather have them do it and build it. Finally, we transitioned to cloud in 2015. Today, we use data not just to inform whether our services are healthy, but also learn about the audience pattern. So we look at what people watch and enjoy, and that gives us ability to produce the kind of stories that people like. When you go to Netflix, when you go to your page, you typically see a lot of widgets that give you recommendations. The recommendations are curated for you as a user. If you log in through a different account for the same movie, you would see a different image. Because as a user, one person may like a particular actor or may like a particular environment better than the other or more than the other user. So we cater to our users' needs and provide appropriate recommendations. We do not have televisions that have graphs to show us what's happening with services. If you can think about 2.5 billion time series metrics, you would need more than 10,000 television sets to view that. Instead, we try to automate. We have error correction, error detection, and backups in a way such that our services are self-healing. And having a microservice architecture means that even if one particular feature or a part of a service goes down, it does not impact the entire website. In that way, we are a very data-driven and a decision-driven company. So our investments are in data and algorithms. We do not do DevOps in a traditional way, but instead we focus a lot on our culture. The first thing that we do is we ask people to go over our culture deck. We want to know the way we think about things is the way you think about things. We value our culture very highly. And the result of a Netflix culture looks a lot like DevOps. DevOps is a result of a healthy culture and healthy thinking. And if whatever I said, if nothing works where you're working, then you do not really have a DevOps problem. You have a culture problem. So this is to say that whether your company is a startup or a big company, there are some principles of this culture or of this thinking or of this mindset of freedom and responsibility that you can apply to your organization. So what does DevOps mean for me? I work on something called as Netflix Drive, which is a file system that runs in user space that allows artists to share and collaborate in the movie making process. It's an edge software, so it runs on different operating systems, Windows, OS X, and CentOS. For my CI/CD needs, I rely on Jenkins and Spinnaker, but I have also started using Mac VM instances on AWS. For deployments, I am using Brew and PKG on OS X. I'm using Yum on CentOS, and I'm using Chocolatey packages on Windows. For logging and metrics, we are using Sentry and in-house tools for observability. That's my time. Thank you so much for joining me today. Please feel free to reach out to me on my email address, LinkedIn, or Twitter. And I'm happy to take any questions at this point. Thank you so much. Please, as I mentioned, if you have any questions or if you come up with any recommendations or any feedback, please feel free to ping me on LinkedIn or Twitter. And I've shared that in the slides. So thank you so much for joining me today. It was a pleasure sharing how Netflix thinks about DevOps with everyone. Thank you.